isn't there a rumor that you like made tea for Banksy once? The mysterious character that is Banksy, who might even be in this room. Who knows?
It is a rumor, but it's true, and it's very, very run.
How do you know it's true?
Because I was there.
Hey, Sarah Coleman.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm good.
Thanks for coming down today. We're doing this series of podcasts where we're interviewing our glorious artists, illustrators, clever people, geniuses, other words.
Nice to be glorious.
You are glorious, always. We've known each other for a very long time, but would you be able to tell everyone what you do and how you work?
I'm Sarah, and I'm an illustrator, although just lately I've been trying to use the word artist because it's broader and it's a better descriptor for all the different things that I do and have done. And I'm part of the B&A community, have been for a very long time.
How many years makes a very long time?
17
Fuck.
years.
That is a long time.
Yeah. And slightly less than double that practicing as an artist professionally.
I love that. And what are your tools? What's your tools of your trade? I know the answer to this. I feel like I'm cheating by asking that question.
I have many tools of the trade, but I always used to joke that if you cut me, I will bleed pure black ink.
I wasn't sure where that was going to go.
Because
just cut me, I will kill you.
That as well, with the sharpest nib that I own.
Yeah.
But that used to be the joke, because at the core of everything I did was ink, and that's still true, although it's expanded out into using different methods. But essentially, ink is where it started and where it still is. Yeah.
Where did that love come from? Because when I think of ink, I literally think of being like 11, being told I have to use a fountain pen,
right,
and then just realizing that then that's fun because I can just squirt ink on people and generally make a mess. And I'm left-handed as well, so it was just always would just smudge.
So there are techniques for working with left-handed people and fountain pens, but
come back to another podcast.
Yeah,
Sarah, run you through how to work.
That could be another talk. Similar, but my dad is the answer to that.
Okay.
My dad he's a filmmaker.
Right.
Doesn't do it quite so much anymore, but he was a filmmaker, and we would always be involved in making title cards together, and I'd help him with the letter set, and it's where the love of type came from, and letter forms. And he used Quink and myriad fountain pens, and he had a set of pens called Witch pens, short for William Mitchell.
I love Witch.
Yeah, so he had a very ancient set of those, which have now retired, and I've replaced them with the modern ones. But I was always using them to the point where eventually, at some point in my first year at college, he said, just keep them. Take them with you.
Nice.
Just keep them.
That's nice. And, tools of the trade.
That's where it began, my dad and his creative endeavours.
I love that. So you've used ink, which is a very beautiful, traditional, like, thing. What else do you use? I mean, you're I guess technically you have to deliver digitally, right?
Yes. I mean, I use pencil, I do low relief, collage, paper, I've used acrylic, I use a lot of bleach in my work as well, because that does interesting things with ink, and I use Procreate, I use a lot of Adobe products, as most people do, but I draw digitally as well, and as many pens as you will find in my office, there is going to be a similar amount of digital brushes and pens.
Okay.
Because of course they're all available to us now, and the other thing is we have the facility to make our own brushes. So I can do that if there's a brush that I need that's not quite right. I
love that. So is it that you have your physical pens? Where do you start? Like, do you start on paper or do you start digitally, or?
Depends on the job.
Right.
It depends on the speed of the job. It depends where I'm working as well. Often it's not practical to travel with pen and ink for all sorts of reasons. So it depends on the number of circumstances, but I will often sketch digitally for speed and for ease of changes, and I can deliver that straight to the client from the iPad, or it will be on paper, and then again I can just take a snapshot and send it off. The paper and pencil method is not necessarily longer, but it can be more immediate to do it digitally, and there is an expectation now. We live in an extraordinarily fast world.
Yes.
So sometimes just get it done. It will look like a pencil drawing anyway, and it will still very much look like me. Often the client doesn't really know the difference.
Love that. Yeah. Because I guess that's that sort of balance between two. That's the nature of a modern artist, isn't it? The ability to do it, because realistically, you have to deliver digitally. So
Yeah,
at some
you
point,
do.
it ends up
Yeah.
in there.
You can
So-
cut out the middleman often being the pencil and paper.
So do you keep sketchbooks? And do you use
Yes.
sketchbooks?
All the time.
Great.
I've got crates and
Sketchbooks
crates.
are good.
Crates of sketchbooks sitting in the dark in the loft, and I often open the loft, put another one in, and think I should do something with these. You know, they need to be out
Should do something
somewhere
with the
on
hooks.
show. Maybe there was a light discussion of a retrospective at some point, but how or where that happens, I don't know yet. But yes, sketchbooks all the way through.
So personal work, what's your kind of, do you have any process for that, or how rigid are you around that? Because again, we represent a lot of different artists, lots of different types of practices. Some people are very methodical, like, you know, I must create this by this time. How do you deal with personal work? 'Cause obviously you do commission work, but what's your process for that?
It's
Or
not methodical.
cool.
It's not regular or programmed in any way. It tends to happen spontaneously. It can come from the urge to simply start making marks off the clock, purely for the visceral pleasure of making a mark.
Oh, I like that.
Surface.
Why?
Which-
Because you like the physical feeling that it just like it's a feel. It's like
the feel, the sensations, the muscle memory is always there. The smell sometimes,
yeah.
depending on what medium it is, and the sounds even. You know, analog tools make a sound when you brush something against something else, or you're folding paper or ripping, let's say. Often I'll work in response to something that's happened. I'll be driven to make a piece of artwork in response to a piece of news or something I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or a quote. And then I just have to go with it. I have to sort of stop what I'm doing and go with that.
And what's your edit process for that? Like, do you keep that? Do you bank it off, or do you rip it up and put it in a ball and chuck it in the bin?
I never rip stuff up
Okay.
because you never know what's going to be useful in the future.
Okay.
Another agent once told me, send what you've got to the client. They might like it anyway, even if you hate it. And even though personal work's not for a client, I just keep everything in the giant sketchbooks.
Yeah.
Stuck in, whatever, clipped in. Because there's been plenty of times I've gone back to something and thought, oh, I did that once.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that didn't quite work. I need it here, or here's a place for it, or that's the answer to this.
Yeah, a crow is a crow, right? And if you drew a crow 10 years ago, doesn't matter.
Even badly, even if I drew it badly.
No, but it might pull back a moment or an inspiration.
So I'm not too precious about it. If it's rubbish, well, that's just my opinion. Whatever, stick in the sketchbook, have a laugh about it, try again.
Yeah.
I
think it's just good to know, because it's like, I think sometimes people get worried about personal work as being this kind of like there's a pressure on it to always be the best and genius and amazing. They forget to make a mistake or forget to do it, and then they erase that mistake so they don't have that moment to look back. Because who knows, 5 years time, that what was a mistake then might actually be that was the eureka moment. I missed it.
Well, for me, and this is purely my outlook on personal work, the very nature of the word personal means I am doing it for myself.
Yeah.
I am not doing it for the gram. It's not for a client. It's certainly not going on TikTok. I'm doing it because I feel driven to make it. And that keeps me connected to the 5-year-old who was drawing for pleasure and for expression. I think once you lose that, you start to see it in your commercial work.
Yes.
My commercial work is highly directed, art edited. Somebody else tells me when it's finished or when it's not finished. Personal work means it can be more of a blob.
So you use the word artist earlier on. So do you think, I don't know how to say this, but in a way that doesn't sound weird.
Say it.
Do you treat your practice as a job, or is it just how you live?
It's both. It's both. I live like this.
Yeah.
And I've made it my job.
Yeah.
I always wanted to, my only aim in life was to be an artist who earns money for being an artist. And I knew that it would be some sort of commercial artist.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can make that your livelihood. Well, no, people do. They have boundaries. I think we perhaps don't. So it's, we live it. It's both. It's my existence.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous territory, because then you're into the existential thing of, where does the job start and the person start? But But yeah, it's all I've ever known.
Yeah, no, I struggle with that sometimes because you're almost programmed that you're not meant to feel like that. It's that you're not, you're meant to compartmentalize, but actually I think it's impossible to do that. I love what we do. I love being an agent. I love representing artists, learn about what they do. And every day, who knows what briefs might turn up or new things you might learn. And then from an agent's perspective, we get pleasure from opening a new opportunity for someone, or send them a brief to do something they wouldn't do. And that does leak into your weekend, into your evenings, and
Yeah, it does.
because you're always thinking about that, and you're always looking at things and being inspired by things. And I can't imagine doing something where you go home and then you don't think about that.
Well, it's
You know what I mean?
interesting. It's very interesting that you say that. There's a part of me that has always craved that. My sisters do jobs, very intense, very demanding jobs, but when they finish, they finish.
Yeah.
They'll finish late sometimes,
Yeah.
but they will finish. And I used to crave that
Yeah.
on off, but I don't actually think I would ever really be off.
Well, no, I'm the same. I've thought about it. I thought, well, wouldn't that be nice if at 6 o'clock suddenly I stop, and then I start thinking back to, I've been an agent for a really long time, and when I first started, the technology was different, the access was different. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll always remember an artist, still a friend, who I study with. I'll never forget him coming into the office with an iPhone and showing us this thing. He's like, "Look at this."
Like
And
caveman looking at fire.
well, it was a bit like that because I had I had a phone with a camera. It was like we still we had these 2 megapixel cameras. And I always remember thinking that is kind of useful, but not. I remember the iPhone, and I was like, talk to me about it. What's so good?" He's like, "Wow, it's like it's my iPod. It's got a camera." He's like, "The best thing is I can look at my emails." And I remember both of us saying, like, me and everyone else in the office, like, "Why would you want to look
Is
at
that a
your
good
emails?"
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, like because we didn't have Blackberries, we weren't that sort of world, and you weren't on. Like, I didn't have access to my emails. I had the laptop and what have you, but when I was at home, I didn't. But then the difference then was that I would go out to events and things like that. So it's a bit more physical
Yeah.
then. Whereas now you're switched on. all
You
the
were
time.
connected in the old-fashioned sense because you were going out.
Yes, exactly. Talking of which, actually, I always feel like you're quite a big part of communities and things like that. You're always out and about, you're doing stuff, meeting people, talking to folks. How did you meet people back in the day? How did that work? Before Instagram and things like that. How are you doing what you do?
Lots of travel to London, actually, because
Yeah.
I think we started at a broadly similar time in the industry's history. Yeah,
Victorian time.
as evidenced by the ancient pen. But the same as you, really. It was a very London-centric industry when I started, and everybody questioned, why aren't you moving to London? And the main answer was, well, I can't afford it. That's the truth.
Good start.
I stayed in the Midlands because everywhere is accessible to and from the Midlands. So yeah, I went out. I came to events where events weren't on. I was instrumental in helping to put them on.
Yeah.
And you just had to put in the legwork, which meant a lot of National Express coaches, trains, and so on, and overnight stays. But we drove everywhere as well. So we were very mobile in London is very difficult to get into in a car now.
Yes.
And it does make a difference because we could hop in the car in an hour and a bit. We could be in London, park in Archway anywhere we wanted to, and be anywhere. And that spontaneity and freedom of access in and out of the city enabled us to network in a way that I think would be quite difficult now, or made more difficult because of changes to things like congestion charge and
I mean, it is
driving
now.
into the city.
We've talked about personal work. We talked about your weapons of choice. What is your drink of choice? Like, how do you power your day? My personal one is caffeine and orange squash, which both are
Not together.
I haven't tried them together, but might as well be together because I do, do it. What about you?
Strong black coffee.
Oh, it is.
It's strong black coffee.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got an early 80s coffee machine,
That's fun.
which burbles away and makes coffee in a very 80s way and very strong.
Sounds great.
Yes, that's
Nice.
mine. It used to be tea.
All right.
It used to be tea. At some point it
What's
swerved.
tea
into
bag of
coffee.
choice? I know what mine is.
I used leaves, loose leaf
Do
tea.
you? Okay. But isn't there a rumour that you made tea for Banksy once? The mysterious character that is Banksy, who might even be in this room. Who knows?
She might be. Yeah,
Ooh,
that's funny.
it might be.
It is a rumor, but it's true, and it's very, very run
How
of
do
the
you know
mill
it's true?
because I was there.
Yeah, I know, but what did they say? Hello, I'm Banksy.
Oh,
Nice to meet
so
you.
it was a very long time ago, and we were talking a minute about about networking and
Yep.
being in places in
Yep.
person. So I did many of my formative years around a bunch of graffiti artists, and I think that
Yep.
really I put it in a blog recently. It really informed how I thought and worked about being an artist.
Yep.
Informed many of my sort of modus operandi. And in that orbit were many people, one or two of whom I think you represent,
Yeah,
Ince's one of them, obviously.
yeah.
But Banksy was in that orbit, and it's when he was his pre-myth era.
So what was that like? Dragon Ball, that sort of like.
He was doing the monkeys,
Right.
Laugh Now, all of that.
Yeah.
But my friend and I, another graffiti artist, we'd taken over an abandoned swimming pool in Brixton, the Brockwell Lido.
I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, and it was semi-derelict, and we were putting on an exhibition. We took over the space and we turned the changing rooms and other spaces into a gallery, painted the walls. It was me, Sarah One, and Dane had the space to ourselves, and we did it. We just put the show on, called it Deep End, and I slept at this swimming pool for a week or so, freezing cold in a little what would have been the office, I guess.
What?
At some point, it was very cold one night. Banksy dropped by because he was
Cool cat.
friends.
Living in the.
He's a lovely bloke. He's a
It's a man.
lovely
Like, guess who?
bloke.
Does he wear a beret?
He didn't have his berry on, no. And we all just had tea.
Like cigars?
Can't remember.
Glasses?
Can't say.
Literally.
Can't say one way or the other.
Stripy
but-
t-shirt.
No, he had a coat on because it was bloody freezing.
Cool.
So yeah, so I made tea for everyone, and we just had a chat. And as I say, it's pre the Banksy that we know now,
Right.
and so it's become a thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a thing. It was just he's one of the blokes that came by to see how we were getting on. So.
It's funny with that. So you mentioned this a second ago, actually. I always think this is one of the other things I love about you, Sarah, is that you still blog, but you also still you write quite a long form newsletter every month.
I do.
Which I personally love. I feel like I try and respond to you every month, but I do always. I've often picked up the phone to call you, haven't I?
Bless you. Yeah, it's good to know.
I love that. That's to me, and this is probably a leading question, but that feels like part of your personal practice or whatever. Why'd you do it? What's it for?
I love writing. Number one.
Cool. Makes sense. Pens.
Yes, there was at one point a fork in the road where I was going to go into writing.
Right.
I took the exams for Oxford because it
like Garth Marenghi, horror writer, Dreamweaver.
It probably would have been horror, or some sort of uber gothic fiction. But I didn't want, at the last minute, I said I'm not going to do them because I didn't want to go to Oxford and do English, although I could have. In the end, the art won over, but I never lost the love of writing.
Love that little
And
mini brag there.
So I'm afraid it is.
Whatever.
But I guess I'm mentioning that because it was testament to the fact that at that early stage, the ability and the drive was there to become a writer if I'd wanted to. And so I had to find other ways of building the writing into the work.
Yep.
And that's blogging, copywriting, blurb writing. Social media is a little opportunity to do very short form. And even I think it even comes through in the love of letter forms and type. You know, it's all connected.
Yeah.
So I have to write because I feel like I'm going to go bonkers if I don't.
But we've got a couple of artists that do it, and I have to say I personally love it. Like Tom Brown does it's different but similar vein of like it's like a splurge of information. It's not just I did this thing, look at this thing.
No,
that. There's a bit of opinion in there, and is it like a release? A bit like like we talked about personal work. So, you know, is it something almost like a time capsule, like a diary?
Some of it will be, I guess. Yeah. Pre-social media, there wasn't the frequent access to communicate your ideas and your thoughts.
Yeah.
So blogging was it. But I think more so than the urge to do personal visual work, I feel more driven to write because if that doesn't come out, I almost start to feel off.
You might pop.
Ill, yeah, like not scratching an itch or not having a drink of water.
I love that.
Yeah.
You, Sarah, is there anything? I quite enjoyed chatting with us doing this actually.
Yeah, there's nothing particularly I want to kind of I certainly don't want to talk about AI.
No, fuck that. Like,
I mean, it's here and I'm using it. Used it yesterday, but
I use it. I love ChatGPT. I love a chat with ChatGPT. I ask it very stupid shit.
have you named yours?
No,
Mine's PT.
PT, like a weird imaginary friend.
Chat GPT.
Oh,
I had to personify it. Somehow it felt rude not to.
have you ever used it as part of your work? As in, like, have you ingested any of your imagery and asked it to look at it or respond to it? Or
One thing I did recently that was really interesting is I took some ink-made pieces, quite spontaneous ink-made, a snow globe. I'd done an ink snow globe, and it's completely two-dimensional, and it's made with a sparkly ink, so you can't really see that very well in a photograph. And I asked ChatGPT to turn them into three-dimensional images, and it did it, and it did it beautifully. And there before me was a three-dimensional snow globe, which looked for all the world as if I'd still created this snow globe in ink, but it stood and it had light and shadow and form.
So it's really just a projection that was in your head anyway, right?
It's not. It did slightly more. It did a little more than I expected it to, and I was very charmed by it actually.
Yeah, I mean that's no different than doing a Google image search and being like, I wonder what a carrot looks like from Bulgaria.
But it was it, and what I did was I checked with.
I don't know. You know what I mean? You never know, right? It might look different.
Checked with PT first what the consequences were of me feeding in an image, and basically it's my image stays within our conversation. It is not trained or fed to another body.
There's some really interesting systems out there. Sergio, who is the co-director at Serial Cup, he's been really exploring quite deeply AI with a group of friends, and I'm pretty sure it's Krea, KREA.ai, which is a very interesting system because it creates private data sets.
Yes,
so
that's where it's at.
And I think that's very interesting because what he's found is that he can put, if he's got an idea, he could put a body of his own work within that, and it's only going to pull from those images.
Yes, it's between you and your data
like you
set.
just said then, it's not going out in the wills. No one's going.
I'm not training.
I'm having that. Like it's literally tooling, which is no different than pressing blur on Photoshop. To be perfectly honest, it's still the computer's helping you. Have you experimented with anything like that? Would you be up for doing that?
I would happily getting involved in personal data sets and seeing what can be done. I think some of the most moving work I've seen recently, human or machine made, was Holly Herndon's exhibition at the Serpentine, The Call.
I didn't see that.
She and her partner, Matt Dryhurst, her partner, had trained an AI to sing as a choir, but it was trained on human voices. It learned how to sing as part of a choir, and part of the exhibition was you walk into a booth, you sing to it, and it sings back to you.
Bloody hell.
And it was I mean,
it's cool.
It sounds cheesy, but I am getting goosebumps just remembering it because it sang back.
Wow.
With my voice included.
I mean, I hate my voice, so I don't know if I want to hear that, but wow, that's cool.
So I sang it a bit of Radiohead.
Did you? Which one? What song?
Everything in its Right Place.
Right.
And it was beautiful. But it is human beings working with their own trained data and working with the AI as the third member of the team, plus all of the human choir members.
Wow.
It's I walked away from that thinking there is the intersection of where, if I become involved with AI more deeply, that's the benchmark right there. That's the model for
collaboration, isn't it? That's
I
think there's this notion of taking, and it's like, well, AI is only really looking backwards, right? So
yes,
we're humans inherently look forwards, and
this work produced the most human response in me, and I think that was that's nice. That was the impression I was left with it.
Yeah. I don't want AI to write a book for me. Do you know what I mean? That's just, unless it's a factual textbook and the facts are correct, fine. But like, I don't want to read science fiction by AI. I want to read Philip K. Dick or someone like that. Someone who's taken loads of amphetamines and lost their mind.
And ironically written about the very future we are living in.
Exactly. Thanks, Sarah. That was really fun.
Thank you.
We meandered through many different subject matters.
We did.
But I think what I always take from whenever I speak to you is how much you clearly love what you do, how out there you are with what you do, and how much I always just enjoy chatting.
Oh, thanks,
To be
Sam.
honest.
I love a chat,
I like a
and it's good to have a good robust chatting partner to do that with.
I would agree. So if any of you are not chatters, become a chatter. Not to chat GPT, although you can be. Chat to each other. Night night.